Welcome to Body by Design. I'm your host, Blue Driver, a women's strength training and metabolism coach. I went from years suffering hormone imbalances, looking soft and bloated, to symptom-free and building muscle for a toned athletic physique. Since then, I've made it my mission to empower women to take control of their own health, hormones and body composition. So grab a cup of coffee and let's build your body by design. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Body by Design podcast. I'm Lou Driver, your host, and today I want to talk about a narrative I'm hearing a lot on social media, and it is eat more protein. Okay, so particularly at that 40 plus women's crowd, it's really being sold as eat more protein. But what if you're already in the gym and you thought you already ate enough protein? And now you're hearing this whole narrative of eat more protein. Protein builds muscle. Muscle's really important. So you up your protein again at the sacrifice of other macros, okay? Because we know that you have a caloric top before it just becomes fat gain. So we're sacrificing another macronutrient, so a carb and fat, to get more protein in. And even though more protein isn't wrong if you're someone who's eating 60 grams of protein, yes, that should be the case. But with it being such a heavy narrative in this space at the moment, we're missing women just like you who are already in the gym, already know that protein is important, yet that's all you're hearing, eat more protein. Okay, you've made eating protein your day job, but it's come at the cost of other things. So how has this come about? You know, crazy keto, carnivore, all those fad diets, right? And now the insulin resistance story that everyone's being told about perimenopause, that you hit perimenopause and you automatically become insulin resistant. The problem is we actually were leading up to insulin resistance prior to perimenopause, okay? Perimenopause didn't create it, it revealed it. That's the difference there. You were probably already insulin resistant before or on the verge of it. Then you hit a time of your life where, yes, your hormones are going to be going up and down, but they didn't create the resistance. Your body just become less resilient to all the fad, crazy diets that you've been doing and restricting that you've been doing, and then your body starts paying for it. All right, so I'm really seeing this push of high protein towards the 40 plus women. But when you're already in the gym and training and you already know that protein's important, where else do you go from there? So let's talk about why carbs are the missing piece here, okay? Because generally what I'm seeing is women coming in and they're eating 150, up to 200 grams of carbs. Seriously, I'm seeing women eat up to 200 grams of protein at the sacrifice of carbs, and their carbs are well under 200 grams. No woman should be under 200 grams of carbs. I eat 300 grams of carbs, sometimes more, depending on where I am with my training. So carbs are a really important missing piece. And rather than just tell you carbs is the missing piece, this is what I want to unpack today with you and talk to you about the importance of carbs and why it's so important when you want to change your body composition. So you say you want more muscle, you say you want to lose body fat. Okay, so to do that, our bodies need to be operating in an optimal way. And all macronutrients are as important as one another. I'm going to go through 5 things today that carbs support that are going to get you to the body composition change that you want, that body that looks like it lifts, that body with more muscle. Okay, there's 5 important keys here. I am going to dive a little bit into the science side of it. I'll try and keep it light. I'll try and keep it basic, but follow along with me. Like seriously, take on board the importance of carbs in balance to protein, because I'm seeing people eating more protein than their carbs. And that macro split is not a healthy split if you're already in the gym training and 40 plus. That's not the sort of ratios you should be having. So let's get into the whys. First of all, let's talk about insulin, because there is a big narrative out there that insulin resistance, okay? So carbs trigger insulin in us. So we eat carbs. What doesn't go into our muscles is left in our blood glucose. So it signals insulin. The insulin comes out and takes that glucose out of the blood and shuttles it into the cell. Okay? So that's the first thing. Now, insulin and blood sugar are meant to go up, go down, go up, go down throughout the day. Okay, they are meant to rise and fall. What we're trying to avoid massive spikes and falls, like excessive spikes and excessive falls. And this happens when we eat meals that aren't balanced. That's a whole other podcast. I won't get into that now. But let's move away from the insulin resistance narrative and actually understand what insulin is doing in our body. So that's one of its mechanisms, is to take the carbohydrates out of your blood, the glucose, and pop it into the cells. When it has whatever hasn't gone into the muscles, it will then get pushed into the cells by insulin. But insulin's main job is to stop breaking down our muscle tissue, okay? It's not building it, but it's actually there to stop us breaking it down, okay? So low carbs force your body to burn protein or the amino acids instead of using it for repair. It's called glycogenesis, all right? So yes, there is the narrative out there that you actually don't need carbs, your body can produce it. Yes, it can. One, it's a more stressful process on the body. It's actually a backup survival mechanism. So just because it can do it, should it be doing it all the time? The answer is no, okay? We should be giving our body the preferred source of fuel, because if we're not giving it to it, it's going to go and do it anyway, but that is at the cost of repairing your muscle. So it's going to take the protein that you're eating and turn it into carbs anyway, into glucose. It's going to turn that protein, because there's no carbs for glucose. It's going to take those amino acids, break them down and turn it into glycogen. Okay. But then when it's taking those amino acids, it's taking them away from the repair and the building of muscle. So that's one of the things that happens in it. So we're forcing our body to create fuel instead of building muscle tissue. Okay. And low carbs mean low glycogen. And when we have low glycogen, we can't push as hard with our sets in the gym. All right. So the gym creates the stimulus. You're not actually growing the muscle in the gym. You're just signaling to the muscle, hey, I need more of this. When you push close to mechanical failure, your body says you're not strong enough. You need more muscle. Great. Signal created. Now, how do we get it? But if you don't have enough glycogen to begin with, you don't have enough energy in the gym to push as hard to create a bigger signal. The bigger the signal, the more your body can build. All right. So without a stimulus, you don't get any growth, no matter how high your protein is. The next one is thyroid. Okay. So when we're talking about thyroid, I want you to think metabolism. Okay. Your thyroid actually drives your energy conversion ability. So how we process fuel going into our body. And when we have a low metabolic rate, so a low caloric intake that maintains us, it's because our metabolism is low, and that's driven from our thyroid. And when our metabolism is low, our body goes into survival mechanisms, which means our sex hormones are going to be down-regulated because it doesn't have enough energy for itself. So it's not going to give you sex hormones to reproduce and have to grow another human being at the same time. Okay, that's why when you have a low metabolic rate, your hormones, perimenopause, all that hits really hard. You're dysregulated in your hormones. Okay. So carb availability, what that does with your thyroid, when it's low, you use carbohydrates to convert T4, which is something that your thyroid produces, to T3, okay? And it affects that conversion because it doesn't have the energy coming in to do it. T3 is our active thyroid hormone. So the carb restrictions lowers our T3 output, even without a formal low thyroid diagnosis. We've down-regulated our thyroid production, our T3, because we don't have enough glucose to convert T4 into T3. So it's actually not a medical thyroid issue. It's a conversion issue. All right. And insulin is required for T4 to T3 conversion. Now, we've just gone over the insulin piece. We want insulin to spike. So there is another job of insulin. How do we produce insulin? By eating carbs that turn into glucose, requiring the insulin to be produced. Now, again, we do want balanced meals and we want it to ebb and flow nicely. We don't want massive spikes and drops, but insulin is actually really good and it's got lots of different functions. So here is another one. That insulin is going to help T4 and T3 be produced, or T4 be produced into T3, which is your thyroid hormone. Without enough T3, your thyroid becomes lower, you get metabolically downregulated. So when people talk about, oh, you go into a diet and you get metabolic adaptation, that's what happens. Your body stops converting T4 to T3 because it's not got enough fuel and it's not got enough insulin being produced through the carbohydrate to actually convert that T4 to T3. That's what happens in metabolic adaptation. It comes from your thyroid, and your thyroid's preferred source of fuel is carbohydrates, not forcing your body into glucogenesis through burning proteins. It wants straight glucose. So let's just give our thyroid that. So that's another really good reason to why carbohydrates are so important in this whole muscle building. You know, this is all about muscle building. If you want the body that looks like it lifts, you need more muscle and you need to drop body fat. To do that, these are all the mechanisms that you actually need. So it's not just amino acids. That's one very small facet of it, right? So then let's move into cortisol. So our cortisol production is affected by glucose as well. So cortisol will rise during carb restriction. Okay. Now, elevated cortisol further suppresses thyroid output. So your T4 to T3 conversion. So now you've not got enough insulin and glucose coming in for the T4 to T3 conversion. We're now also going to produce more cortisol because our body is going through the stressful process of taking protein, amino acids to try and convert it into glucose. That's quite stressful. And in that stressed state, we produce more cortisol. And cortisol is catabolic, meaning it eats away at muscle. And you will either significantly slow down the process of repair because cortisol is stopping the repair. So as much as you're creating the stimulus and there's maybe a little bit of energy coming from your protein, it's not enough to buffer the cortisol that's coming in. So you literally are growing muscle at a slower rate, and where it becomes chronic, it actually can outpace the rate of repair in your body. So you're breaking it down. So you're not getting anywhere. Okay. So if you're not building muscle and you feel like you're eating clean and doing well, you might want to have a look at your protein to carb ratio. These are all the things that are happening when your carbs are too low. So chronic low carbs keep cortisol elevated because the body reads it as an energy threat, and it's not. You know, when you've got an energy threat, your body starts going, right, what do I need to do to protect myself? So it goes into these protection mechanisms. So cortisol, tell you what, cortisol is a motherfucker. I went through a build process in an extremely stressful time in my life when I came out of that build and cut process. So I built muscle and I was very happy with what I saw. I looked around me and looked at other people, and though we shouldn't be doing comparison, I knew that there was a piece missing in there. I'm like, I did not build anywhere near as much muscle as what I expected I would, and I wasn't over expecting. Like I did 14 months of 3,000 calories. Like I pushed hard, but I was in a time of life, and yes, I've done a whole other podcast on that. So if you want to know about it, DM me on Instagram at strengthtraining.nutritionist, and I will send you that exact podcast, or you can scroll through and have a look. And it's the whole event that happened with Dean and I, my partner. So we lived in years of chronic stress that we couldn't get out of, and it hindered my build process. I can hands up say I am evidence that cortisol will hinder your muscle building process. Life is stressful enough as it is. Do not add to it with low carbohydrates, because this is what we're doing. All right. The next piece around carbohydrates is liver glycogen. Okay. So when carbohydrates come in, it turns it into glucose, and then we get liver glycogen and we get muscle glycogen. So one type of glycogen tops up our muscles and the other one tops up our liver. And that helps us with getting rid of endotoxins out of our diets and all out of our body. It's got lots of processes there. But liver glycogen is what controls our blood sugar overnight. So when we go into fasting, we're drawing glycogen out of our liver. When we are in energy output, we're pulling it from our muscles. So when we're strength training, we're pulling glycogen from our muscles. When we're sleeping and fasting overnight, what helps regulate our blood sugar really nicely is liver glycogen. So as it runs out of fuel, it then starts pulling from the liver glycogen. And then, if we get through in normal circumstances, we would start to get through the night. We've been fasting long enough and we now start to run out of liver glycogen. So our body goes into a state of stress. And when our cortisol is at its lowest, it starts to rise and it wakes us up. Now, that should be at a normal time of the morning, depending what your sleep patterns and habits look like. So I'm not going to pin it to a time of the morning, but it should be a natural time of waking for you because you've now run out, you're producing cortisol. And this is why our cortisol is at its highest in the morning because we've been through fasting. So cortisol, it's actually designed, that's how we wake up. We're designed to do that. All right. So, and it raises our cortisol. And then as we feed and fuel through the day, our cortisol drops because we're delivering energy to our body. It takes it out of a state of stress and it drops further and further and further and it drops right down to its lowest at night so we can go to sleep. So cortisol is a sleep and wake. It affects our circadian rhythm. Okay. Now, sleeping is a natural fasting period and that liver glycogen is meant to be depleted. It's a fully normal process. But what if your liver glycogen is already low from chronic carb intake? So you won't turn protein, amino acids into additional liver glycogen. When you are exerting energy and functioning throughout the day, your body is madly trying to take that excess protein because there's not enough glycogen being incoming from carbs. So it's taking those amino acids because it's a stressful, longer process. It's trying to break that down into enough energy just to keep you breathing, functioning, walking. All right. It doesn't get a chance to top up your liver glycogen. So your liver glycogen gets quite depleted. So it's already low from a chronic low carb intake or under eating or heavy training without refueling. So blood sugar can drop really low overnight. So we go into fasting. And when we run out of the fuel that we've been eating, we then start pulling from our liver glycogen. But because the stores are low, it runs out so much faster. And this is where, okay, I've run out. So now it's time to make cortisol. And the cortisol kicks in. And this is where you're waking at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, bing, wide awake. And you're like, why the fuck can I not go back to sleep? So if your liver glycogen is low and you're not responsibly topping up your liver glycogen, that might have something to do with those 2, 3 a.m. wake-ups. And if that is happening, you need to address the amount of carbohydrates you have in your body. You didn't just magically wake up with perimenopause and this happened. This has been going on for a long time and now your body is just a lot less resilient, a lot more responsive to cortisol, and you've got low glycogen stores. So it is running out earlier in the night rather than in the morning when you should be waking. So your circadian rhythm gets affected. And those same stress hormones, cortisol, remember we've just been talking about it because it rises and it's like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. You're not getting up and eating. You're laying there tossing and turning. So you leave it so much later until you get up and refuel. And really to stop that cortisol, it needs fuel. Now you normally wake up and eat within the first hour and if you're not, you should be eating within the first hour of waking under normal circumstances. But you've just added about 4 hours before you even eat because of this early waking up. So now you're forcing the cortisol not just to rise to normal levels, but it continues to rise without its refueling. So it continues to rise and it gets excessively high. And what does cortisol do? That same hormone that's waking you up is the one breaking down your muscle tissue as well. So now you've got excess cortisol that is working against you building muscle, and it will make your body hold on to body fat. Lack of muscle and lack of muscle growing makes your body hold on to fat stores as well. So we've just spoken about the cortisol and what it does and how the liver works. And when you have low glycogen, you're forcing more cortisol. Now, sleep. If your liver glycogen is running out too early and you're high cortisol, so you're low glycogen in your liver, you're now excessively high cortisol, then add life stresses in on top of it. You've got all these hormones working against you. And now you're also not sleeping very well. Did you know that the growth hormone in our deep sleep is what actually repairs our muscles? The growth hormone drives the amino acid uptake and repair, but that is only produced in deep sleep. So if you're not sleeping or you've got super light sleep because you can't get back to sleep, guess what you're not producing? Or you have reduced production of your growth hormone. which is there to take the amino acids and repair your muscles that you just put a stimulus on. That's not happening for you. All because you're not sleeping well, because when you're sleeping, that's when it happens. So evening carbs, having a bedtime snack with a little bit of a slow digesting protein and some carbs before you go to bed helps sleep onset so much more. Studies show that your brain chemistry can help the onset of sleep having some evening carbs. So at least a really good dinner with carbs in the evening. Okay, so cutting out evening carbs, you're cutting out one of those levers that control the deep sleep. And then we don't produce the growth hormone, and then we produce excess cortisol. So the growth hormone that we need is less, and the cortisol that goes against it is getting higher. We've got all these compounding effects, haven't we? And then we've got a downregulated metabolism now because we don't have the insulin coming in. All these things compound and make muscle building so much harder than it already is, particularly for women. And not only harder, it's likely preventing you. So poor sleep controls our cortisol rising, and cortisol increase does the muscle breakdown. And without growth hormone, you're not round and round in circles. And you're wondering why you still look soft, even though you eat clean. So eating clean for you might be, but I have a really good, meal in the evening. I have a nice big steak or salmon, and I fill my plate up with veggies, and I'm so full, but there is fuck all carbohydrates in broccoli and cauliflower, or a big plate of salad. There's no carbohydrates in there. And meanwhile, you're fearing fruit because it's got sugar in it. Did you know sugar, there is absolutely nothing wrong with sugar. And when you crave sugar, everyone's going, I can't help the cravings. Your body is such a smart being for survival. It's programmed to survive, that when you're not getting enough sugar, it forces the craving. Why? Because it needs the fuel, not because it's addictive, because it needs the fuel. And you can talk about all those stupid shows on TV about how sugar's bad for you, but if you actually break it down and look at it, it's the crap within the product that they're using. Yes, it's high in empty sugar, but it's also got seed oils and preservatives and artificial colors and high fats and, just void of nutrients. But when we eat predominantly nutrient-dense carbs, potatoes, sourdough, rice, fruits, root vegetables, honey, maple syrup, dairy is a good source of carbohydrates as well. It's quite a balanced product. Dairy's got your protein, fats, and carbs. A lot of balance there. So these are the things that are nutrient dense, that if you then want to go and put a teaspoon of sugar in your coffee because that's the way you like your coffee, well, fucking go for it, because it's just empty calories. But our body actually needs that fuel. It will still utilize it. Is it getting the nutrients? No. So we don't want you to have a diet full of white sugar and no nutrition, because that absolutely will not, because we need all the vitamins and minerals. We're not talking about the micronutrients in this podcast, though last week I did do one on around micronutrients and the importance of what we eat. So please go and have a listen to that one. But there's also a link below to the Optimal Foods Guide that talks more to this. So sugar isn't the enemy. It's if you have it devoid of nutrients. So fruit is so good for you, full of vitamins and minerals. Root vegetables, think sweet potato, squash, pumpkins, beetroots, like all these beautiful foods. And meanwhile, you're piling your plate full of broccoli and salads that are just excessive fiber and no carbohydrate. And those types of vegetables, you don't actually absorb the nutrients either. So they don't have a lot of nutrient value that is usable for us. So when we go to easy to digest, really good carbohydrates with nutrients, a little bit of sugar every now and then is not going to hurt you. All right. So all of this, the whole lot, all 5 points, thyroid, cortisol, insulin, sleep, liver glycogen, all of them are connected to muscle growth. Low carbs mean low T3. Low T3 means a slow metabolic rate and excessive perimenopause symptoms. And when you have a slow metabolic rate, You don't build and repair. When you're low carb, it means higher cortisol. Higher cortisol means a breakdown that outpaces the repair of your muscle building. Low liver glycogen from low carb disrupts your sleep. And sleep means less growth hormone, which means there's less repair happening overnight, and it pushes your cortisol even further again. And then all combined, you have just put your body into this defense mode of survival instead of I'm going to start that again. All three put your body into defense mode instead of build mode, where you thrive and flourish and feel nourished, because that is when your body, when you've got calm cortisol, good blood sugar, energy so you can push hard in the gym, solid sleep. Imagine how fucking good you would feel with that. And when you feel like that, that's where your body grows muscle. Because if you've got good energy, you're not metabolically downrated. If you've got good sleep, you're going to have good energy. And who doesn't love carbs? Go drink a glass of juice, for fuck's sake. It's so freeing. The amount of clients that I've got, do you know how long it's been since I've drunk juice? Or do you know how long it's been since I've had potato and now I eat it every night? Like, my God, carbs are so good for you when you have those easy to digest, nutrient-rich carbs. And food is amazing. And when you feel really good, that is when your body will build muscle. And I can guarantee you, apart from when we talk about your physique and you go, I'm not building muscle, I still feel really soft. I look in the mirror and I don't look like I lift. I go to the gym every day and I push hard, right? That's the physical and the doing. But I bet your bottom dollar, along with that, you feel knackered all the time. By the time you leave that gym, you're dragging your ass out there. And if you train in the morning, it's unlikely that your energy pops up again. Your sleep is trash. Your hormones are all over the place. You don't deal with stress very well. Everything triggers you. You're reactive because your cortisol is already high. So one more little thing, like the kids leaving their shoes where they shouldn't, makes you go boom. Because you're already up here because you're high cortisol, not because you're a fucking bitch, which I'm sure you're probably telling yourself, but your body can't handle any more input of stress because biologically it is already stressed and it doesn't know the difference between normal stress, between day-to-day life stress, emotional stress, physical stress. It's just another stress. It's just all adrenaline and cortisol. So, carbs are so good for us. So all of this actually is connected to growing muscle. So as much as we talk about that lean, muscular physique that you want, I bet you deep down you just want a good night's sleep, feel really good, and enjoy the gym again. I remember how much more I started enjoying the gym when I eat carbs. Now, when I diet, I'm quite open about it. I'm in a mini cut at the moment and training fucking sucks. I hate going to training because I drag my ass through it. It doesn't feel good. I don't feel empowered. It feels awful. Wouldn't it be good to feel, I know you love training, but are you actually quietly getting to that place where you've like, what is this all worth? I'm not getting the body that I want and I'm fucking exhausted. I know you still show up every day. You are that person that shows up every day. But biologically, you need to feed your body. Stop listening to any sort of diet or theory or anything that is low or cut out. You need balance. Yes, you need protein. Yes, it is important, but no, it's not the only thing. You need carbohydrates. And yes, you need fat, but not as much as what you think you actually need. So make sure that even though you've got this protein and calorie target, that all of your macros are actually structured well. And one of the ways that you can tell is that if you're eating more protein than carbs, you have a problem. So if you're not tracking your food, go and track all your food. Enter everything you eat for a week and come back. Message me in the DMs. Instagram is a great place to do it. I've also got my WhatsApp number. Message me there. Go, this is my macro split. What does that look like for me? And I will give you some feedback on that. But go and track your food accurately, weigh everything out, track it for even just for a couple of days if you're not. And if your protein is higher than your carbs, then you have a problem. Carbs should be higher than protein. Always. Always. All right. So I hope you have found this helpful in swimming through the sea of Instagram, I don't know, trends, and start asking the questions about what is right for you. Know your goals, know your current position, know how to get there, and apply the information as needed to you. So when someone is screaming at you, eat more protein, you are a smart, intelligent woman. So start thinking critically. Does this relate to me? Is my protein high enough? Could I actually lower my protein a little bit? I've lowered people's protein plenty of times coming into my space. Yes, I've also upped carbs. Yes, I've also upped fat, lowered fat. I've done all of the different macros. But it is not surprising when I need to lower women's protein. And I think that that's a really shocking thing these days. And you want to know something? I lowered my protein going into a deficit, because my carbs will spare the protein and still allow me. And my protein intake is still within range of the 1.8 to 2 is a range per kilo of body weight that you should eat in protein. And I'm seeing these women all up at the 2.5, and it's a lot of fucking protein. So to go into a diet, if you leave your protein, a common coaching practice is leave your protein where it is, because we need to make sure that we keep your muscle. But if your carbs have to go that low to create the deficit, you now don't have the energy to create the stimulus to then repair from the amino acids that you're having. So that's the first problem. And that has been my problem. So this deficit, I lowered my protein to ensure that my carbs stayed higher than my protein. Yet I did not go below the recommended standard of building muscle amount of protein. And I have felt great. And this has been quite an aggressive deficit. And I have felt great. I've been able to maintain all my numbers in the gym. No, I haven't progressed, which was never the aim. It was just to maintain numbers, because I don't normally in a deficit. So be a critical thinker. You are a very intelligent woman. And just because everyone is screaming more protein doesn't mean it applies to you. Okay, so always question what you're seeing on Instagram and ask, how does that apply to me right now? And sometimes the narrative always changes for where you are right now. So where you are right now, does that apply to you? Maybe it applied to you in the very beginning of your journey because you weren't eating enough protein. So that rule can have applied to you, but no longer apply to you. The rules the rules don't change. They're just generic rules. Just when and how you apply them is what you actually need to know. And this is what I do in my midlife muscle method. I teach women to take the information and logically apply it to what they need now, because every piece of information out there has some sort of beyond the freaks, okay? Pause there. But when we're talking about standard nutritional information, none of it's wrong, but how does it apply to you right now? So everyone's screaming more protein. I want you to ask, does this apply to me? And hopefully this podcast will help you work out, does that actually apply to me? Do I need more protein? So message me on Instagram if this has been really helpful. I'd love for you to share this podcast if you've got something great out of it and get this into the hands of more women who really need to hear it. So share on Instagram and tag me at strengthtraining.nutritionist, and I will catch you next week.